Trying to think of an original introduction to another video on video game hype is about as hard as EA convincing me that they'll not butcher Titanfall 3 with unnecessary DLC and microtransactions. Back to this video though, and a lot of our problems with pre-order culture and over-expectation boils down to the usage of vertical slices. Chunks of games siphoned off from a full project designed to create assumptions in the first place. These demos don't take into account the ongoing development of the game itself, i.e. features that might get added, changes in the game's mechanics overall. Basically, they're about as indicative of the full picture as one piece of pepperoni is to a full pizza. Still, these coverage cycles are majorly beneficial when handled correctly. Just look at literally everything Rockstar have ever done. Minus those bloody gloves that should have been in GTA 4. No, Jules, I will not stop talking about it every chance that I get. Stealing a first look at any new game is too damn valuable to all involved. It's why we get CG trailers instead of gameplay, and why I can barely point to any modern game that released in the exact same condition it was first shown in. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video games that drastically changed between reveal and release. Number 10, Brutal Legend. Starting out with something so very near and dear to my heart, yes, you can make the case that Brutal Legend's problem was more with what Double Fine chose not to show us, i.e. that the game was actually an RTS all along, but the reality was pre-orders and hype building around a heavy metal themed hack and slash action game that in the end couldn't be further from the truth. Worse still, the game's demo was only taken from the opening cutscene and first fight, plus a car sequence and boss encounter. It sold Brutal Legend entirely as a God of War meets 80s metal album covers mashup, and people like myself couldn't wait to see what else was in store. Turns out Double Fine had created something that controlled like a third-person action romp, but with RTS resource management and unit placement on the ground. It couldn't tick the box of neither action nor strategy very well, and remains one of my personal biggest letdowns in gaming history. Tim Schafer, if you're ever gonna do a follow-up and you totally sure this idea is still gold, keep the focus of Brutal Legend 2 entirely on combat. Damn it! Number 9, Splinter Cell Conviction. Ubisoft have dropped some monumental clangers in their time, but the debut trailer for Splinter Cell Conviction was so bad, so out of character, and so not at all what anybody wanted, it practically killed the franchise right there and then. It was kinda like The Last Jedi, but for stealth games, and somehow even more of a mess. Melee attacks appeared to form the majority of gameplay as enemies were sent pinwheeling across the room, and tables were flipped in an attempt to, assumedly, rein in a wider audience who preferred combat over what the series was known for. Thankfully, Ubisoft listened to the overwhelmingly negative feedback. They kinda couldn't not. I mean, people were hating this thing, and when Conviction did drop, all of these elements were ditched. Sadly, the negativity surrounding this release only bled into Blacklist, a Splinter Cell that's for my money just as good as Chaos Theory, and the franchise has been at the bottom of the bin ever since. Number 8, Fuse. In the history of all the games that were completely shafted by EA, Fuse should be at the very top. Originally existing as a colourful, cartoonish shooter with oodles of charm and a super-heroic edge, Insomniac's publishing deal with EA led to the latter demanding a complete rework after initial focus testing. As such, all that charm and personality was stripped away, and we got a bog-standard Johnny-generic shooter where the game's admittedly neat teamwork combo abilities never got noticed. All because that new aesthetic was so damn drab. It's like, imagine Josh Brown trim his hair down, put him in a grey t-shirt, and remove his ability to argue with me about anything. Where's the fun in that? Looking at the current state of what's in vogue across entertainment, your superhero cinematic universes, Overwatch and Fortnite's art styles, this change kinda cost EA and Insomniac millions. Number 7, The Division. Sometimes you just want to champion that sense of ambition that comes with first looks and debut trailers, but looking back, it's clear that what The Division was shown off as versus what it turned into were two completely different beasts. For a start, it wasn't initially a loot shooter. I'd hazard a guess those elements were added in once Ubisoft got wind of just how successful microtransactions were becoming, alongside Destiny's model of longevity coming from running and rerunning the same areas over and over again. Graphics too received a considerable downgrade from that initial footage. Things like bullet holes in vehicles disappeared, and the crowd-wowing moving door was nowhere to be seen. The ability for multiple players to join in regardless of whether they were on consoles, phones, or tablets was also discarded entirely. As a result, hype netted Ubisoft some insanely strong day one sales, only for the player base to drop off a staggering 93% in the following 2 months. Ouch. Number 6, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. The sort of thing that would kill a career Peter Molyneux with goddess style now, when Metal Gear Solid 2 released as one massive troll on the gaming populace, people heralded creator Hideo Kojima as a genius rather than an outright liar. So it went that as Metal Gear 2's story was about the want to embody something greater than ourselves, in this case main man Solid Snake, Kojima slipped the rug out from under us, supplanted Raiden in his place, and then spent a good 45 minutes philosophizing about why it was the best thing ever. To be honest, I really love Hideo Kojima, and I was one of those people defending him back in the day, but to be honest, looking back, it's a bit ridiculous. Needless to say, the fact that one of the most hyped games of all time was a bait and switch didn't go down too well with certain pockets of the gaming community, though it's a testament to just how impeccably well Metal Gear 2 played that nothing came of it overall. Number 5, Killzone 2. Remember this? Sony really were drinking the Kool-Aid back in those first couple of years of the PS3's launch. Not only did they expect people to pay $600 for a 60-gig model at launch, but when it came time to show off the new Killzone, they literally faked gameplay footage with a pre-rendered cutscene. I mean, in a way, that almost feels criminal, but let's just carry on. Sony's Jack Tretton went on to state that the footage was real gameplay everybody's seeing out there before a member of Guerrilla Games labeled it a target render of what we thought would be possible on the PS3. It's something we would be aiming for. Both parties seemed determined not to admit fault or start a lawsuit, leading to 2007 when a now in-game version of Killzone 2 looked completely different. Perhaps it's testament to just how much social media just wasn't a thing back then that they managed to get away with such a ridiculous stunt. Number 4, Halo 5 Guardians. Graphical downgrades and game changes are one thing, but advertising your game so strongly in a particular direction only for the final product to be nothing of the sort, that's a rather big problem, both on the consumer side and for the fans. Halo 5 sat alongside Metal Gear Solid 5 and Batman Arkham Knight all in 2015 as 3 titles all purporting to be about a specific plot point, only to drop the ball entirely. Guardians felt particularly egregious though, as an entire viral marketing campaign was set up around the supposed idea that the Master Chief was on the run, with 2 contrasting adverts showing both the Chief and relative newcomer Spartan Locke attempting to take each other out. What was at the heart of their conflict? Why was Locke convinced the Chief had done something truly awful? How could it make him want to kill someone we all love so much? Well, turns out it didn't matter, because the conflict boiled down to Master Chief nonchalantly disobeying an order, being asked to come in, and reconciling with Locke immediately after. If you were promised a turbine and delivered a mouse fart, that was Halo 5. Number 3, BioShock Infinite. BioShock Infinite's development was fraught with problems and artistic redirects. As a result, the version of the game first shown back in 2010 was a far cry from what players received in 2013. You can read the full breakdown of what was removed on the BioShock Infinite removed content wiki page, but mainly gone were Elizabeth's more visually stunning abilities that would bend dimensions at will. Gone were tears in the fabric of time that would have let you manipulate levels more freely, and gone were a ton of environments, enemy designs, and the general integration of the skylines to get around. 2013's final release retained some of these features, but at their most watered-down state. Hell, just think of how arbitrarily implemented those skylines were. They should have been as integral to Infinite's combat as the grappling hook is to Titanfall 2. Oh, how I love you, Titanfall 2, you beautiful thing, you. BioShock Infinite was still a solid game, but scratched just a little at the surface and something completely different was waiting beneath. Number 2, Aliens Colonial Marines. Imagine working on a game. You're hard at work pulling morning to night shifts, occasionally sleeping over at the office just to ensure certain deadlines are met. You're being pestered by marketing teams, and it feels like the goalposts are shifting on a day-to-day basis. At some point, and we're only human, there's a chance said game will release with less than the right amount of polish. Like thinking, whatever, it'll do. When handing in a work assignment, Aliens Colonial Marines was a shell of its first proposed self. However, such a drastic change in what the game was advertised as versus its release date led to actual lawsuits being filed against Gearbox, citing false advertising. Once the dust had cleared, the case was eventually thrown out as Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford described it as a huge waste of time, but that could have all been avoided if the game we received bore any resemblance to what was first advertised. Also, say nothing of the one tiny bit of code that needed to be changed to fix the game's AI. That was one hell of a blunder. Number 1, The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt. Whoa there, look, I love The Witcher 3, but the graphical clout it showed off in 2013 was nowhere near representative of the final product. Thankfully, the conversation around this is pretty fascinating, so don't freak out just yet. CD Projekt Red's release is still an outstanding achievement in every respect, but they still caught hell at launch for the difference between what we saw and what we got. CEO Martin Nowinski's comments on the matter were very important, as he very frankly outlines precisely what happens between a trade show and release. And I quote, "We do a certain build for a trade show and it looks amazing, and you are extremely far away from completing the game. Then you put it in the open world regardless of the platform and it's like, oh, expletive, it doesn't really work. We've already showed it, now we have to make it work, and then we try to make it work on a huge scale. This is the nature of games development. Maybe we shouldn't have shown that trailer, I don't know, but we didn't know that it wasn't going to work, so it's not a lie or a bad will, that's why we didn't comment actively. We don't agree that there is a downgrade, but it's our opinion, and gamers' feelings can be different." To be honest, you kinda can't get more honest than that. The nature of video game development is to unrealistically wow you up front, with the team then doing their damnedest to hit goals and benchmarks that were born from the state of a game in a completely different context. When a game is optimized for performance, is it still a downgrade overall? Let me know what you think down in the comments. I can totally see what Nowinski means, and the issue might more be with the reality of game development barely being communicated to the consumer base overall. And that is my list. Let me know what you think down in the comments below based on which games appeared one way only to release in another. Please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.